Imagine discovering that the universe isn't actually made of atoms or quarks or, vibrating strings of energy, but of an alphabet.
Right.
Like, imagine that the physical world around you, the chair you're sitting on right now, the screen you're looking at, the very air you're breathing, it isn't just described by language, but is literally constructed out of it.
Which is a massive shift. I mean, it completely upends our entire modern worldview, doesn't it?
It really does. We're just, we're so used to thinking of words as breath pushed through our vocal cords to share a thought. But what if speaking a word was actually an act of architectural engineering?
Yeah, we are deeply conditioned to believe in a physical, tangible reality. We like mass, we like things we can measure, weigh, and break apart in a particle accelerator.
Exactly, we want to touch it.
Right. But what you're describing is a cosmic paradigm shift, taking us back centuries to a radically different framework.
And that is exactly our mission for today. Welcome to a brand new deep dive. We know you are always eager for a thorough, perspective-shifting learning experience. And today, we're going to unlock the architecture of reality through the lens of a single mind-bending sentence.
Just one sentence.
Just one, from one of the most mysterious texts in human history. We are looking at a 1,500-year-old mystical blueprint.
We are diving into the Sefer Yetzirah, which translates to the Book of Creation. And to understand the gravity of this, you really have to realize that in the realm of Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism,
right,
it was treated as a literal schematic. I mean, it is the foundational attempt to explain the precise mechanics of how an infinite, unknowable creator managed to generate a finite, measurable universe.
It's incredibly ambitious. And the blueprint it lays out in chapter 1, verse 2 is the exact sentence we're going to completely deconstruct today. I want to read it for you right now, just to set the stage.
Go for it.
Okay, it reads, 10 Sephirah of nothingness and 22 foundation letters, 3 mothers, 7 doubles, and 12 elementals.
It sounds like a riddle, or, like an alchemical recipe.
It really does. But I promise you, by the end of this conversation, that riddle is going to make perfect structural sense. You're going to understand how ancient mystics viewed reality not as a collection of physical matter, but as an intricately woven web of pure concepts and the structural geometry of letters.
And to get there, we really have to start at the beginning of that verse, the foundational anchors.
Right, the text mentions 10 Sephirah.
Yeah, because if we're building a universe out of language, we have to understand what these 10 nodes actually are.
Right, because my first instinct when I hear 10 Sephirah is to think of the numbers 1 through 10, like literally just counting.
Sure, yeah, that's what most people think.
But looking at how the ancient commentators break down the Hebrew, there's a massive difference between a Sephirah and a normal number.
Ooh, a vital difference. In Hebrew, the standard word for a physical number, like a digit, is mispar.
Mispar, okay.
Right, so if you're counting 10 physical apples in a basket, use mispar. It denotes a static mathematical object. But the text deliberately does not use that word.
It uses Sephirah.
Exactly, which is rooted in the concept of a process. It translates more accurately to counting or telling.
Wait, I want to make sure I'm grasping the distinction here. So they aren't the numbers themselves?
No, not at all. Think of them as the underlying principles that make the concept of multiplicity even possible in our universe.
Okay, wow.
Like before you can physically hold 2 apples, the universe must first possess the conceptual framework that allows for two-ness to even exist.
So before you can have a trio of anything, the abstract concept of threeness has to be established.
Precisely. The Sephirot are those primal foundational sources from which all multiplicity and counting originate.
So they're basically the preconditions for reality. And what I find so fascinating is how this ties back to language. When you study the linguistic layers of this framework, these 10 Sephirot parallel the 10 Hebrew vowels.
Which is just a beautiful mechanism. Because, well, think about it. What is a vowel? A consonant is a hard boundary. It has a form. But a vowel is breath.
It's animation.
Exactly. You cannot pronounce a consonant without the breath of a vowel driving it.
Yeah.
So if the universe is made of language, the Sephirot act as the breath, the underlying rhythm and life force that will eventually animate the hard consonants of the physical world.
But the Sefer Yetzirah itself is incredibly cryptic about this. It introduces these 10 nodes, these Sephirot, but it doesn't actually name them in the text.
No, it doesn't.
So the famous names we associate with the Kabbalistic tree of life today, they had to be derived from other classical scriptures, right?
Yes. The ancient mystics looked at the broader biblical canon to map out what these 10 conceptual nodes actually were. They essentially asked, when the scriptures talk about the literal foundation of reality, what attributes are listed?
And a prime example of that is the story of Bezalel in the book of Exodus. This is the architect chosen to build the tabernacle, the portable sanctuary in the wilderness.
Right, the master builder.
Yeah, and God says, I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, and with knowledge.
Exactly. And later mystical traditions identify that Spirit of God as the very first and highest of the Sephirah, known as Keter or crown.
The crown.
Right, it's the absolute pinnacle, the initial will to create. And then, explicitly in that verse you just mentioned, we get the next two. Wisdom, which is Chakma, and understanding, which is Bina.
Let's map out the rest of the 10, because I don't just want to list them off like a textbook. I want you, the listener, to understand how they function together.
It's all about the relationships between them.
Right. So below the top 3, we move into the emotional or behavioral attributes of reality. You have cheesed, which translates to love, or sometimes gedula, meaning greatness.
And cheesed is vital because it represents infinite, unconditional giving. It's pure expansion.
Just pure outward energy.
Yeah, if cheese were left unchecked, the universe would just expand infinitely with light and love until everything dissolved into it. It's completely boundless.
But a universe can't exist if it's just boundless expansion. It needs edges.
Which brings us to the very next Sephirah, Gevurah, or strength. This is the absolute opposite of cheesed. Gevurah is contraction, boundary, judgment, and limitation.
So reality literally exists in the friction between these two nodes. You have the infinite expansion of love colliding with the strict limitation of strength, and in the middle of that tension you get the next Sephirah, Tiferet, which translates to beauty or balance.
Beautifully put, yes. The physical universe requires that balance. You need gravity to pull things together, which is a form of contraction.
Right, so things don't just fly apart.
Exactly. But you also need expansive energy to keep the planets from just collapsing into the sun. That is Tiferet. It's the harmonious synthesis of expansion and contraction.
And as we move further down this map of reality, we get to Netzach, which is victory or endurance, and its counterbalance, Hod, which is splendor or submission.
Yeah, another dynamic pairing.
Then we have Yesod, the foundation, which we're going to talk a lot about later, because that is where things really start to connect. And finally, at the very bottom, receiving all this energy, is Malkut, kingship, or actualized reality.
Those are the 10 nodes, and when they're drawn out, they're classically arranged in 3 vertical columns. The right column of expansion, the left column of restriction, and the middle column of balance. This is the famous tree of life.
Well, if you look at the diagrams drawn by the classical Kabbalists, there's a glaring anomaly that always catches my eye.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Right in the middle column, sitting just below wisdom and understanding, there's another node. It's labeled dot, which means knowledge. But, and this is the weird part, it's almost always drawn as a dashed line, a dotted circle.
Right, the ghost node.
Yeah, it's like a ghost node. Why is knowledge given this strange liminal status? It's not counted as one of the 10 true Sephiros.
The treatment of date is honestly one of the most profound insights in this whole system. According to the mystics, knowledge is not a distinct independent Sephirah. It does not exist on its own.
So what is it?
Rather, it's the active point of confluence between wisdom on the right and understanding on the left.
Wait, I'm trying to visualize this. What is the actual difference between wisdom and understanding in this context? Because, in everyday English, we use those words interchangeably.
We do, but in Kabbalah, they are radically different. Wisdom, Chakma, is pure, instantaneous inspiration. It's the flash of genius. It's completely nonverbal.
Okay.
Like the entire concept of a symphony delivered to your brain in a single millisecond. But you can't play that flash of light. You have to break it down. That is understanding, Dinah.
I see.
Understanding takes that pure inspiration and categorizes it, gives it structure, turns it into distinct, verbalized thoughts.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let me try an analogy here. Replacing the old, tired computer operating system metaphor with something a bit more organic, let's look at this like a master musician composing a masterpiece.
Oh, I like this. Go ahead.
So, wisdom is that moment the musician wakes up from a dream with the entire symphony already living in their heart. It's pure, raw, nonverbal potential.
Yes.
Understanding is the grueling work of sitting at a desk with a pencil, taking that pure feeling and mapping it onto sheet music. It's creating the time signatures, the distinct notes, the structure.
Right, doing the actual work.
But even then, you just have a feeling in your heart and ink on a page. There's no actual sound.
Exactly.
So dat, knowledge, is the physical act of sitting at the piano and striking the keys. It's the processing bridge. It takes the raw inspiration of wisdom, runs it through the structural blueprint of understanding, and generates the actual vibrating reality.
That is a phenomenal way to understand it.
Dat isn't the inspiration, and it isn't the sheet music. It's the invisible, dynamic spark of connection between them. That's why it's a dotted circle.
Without dat, wisdom remains entirely abstract, locked in the mind, and understanding remains an unplayed sheet of music. Dat is the active synthesis. And keep that concept of the bridge in your mind, because when we get to the letters of the alphabet, we're going to see exactly how that bridge operates mechanically.
I'm definitely keeping a pin in that. But before we get to the letters, we have to deal with the second half of that strange phrase in the opening verse.
The nothingness.
Right. It calls these 10 nodes the 10 sephirot of nothingness. The Hebrew word is belima. If these 10 nodes are the anchors of reality, the very things keeping the universe balanced, how can they be nothing?
This brings us to a really fascinating linguistic crossroads. The classical commentaries offer two distinct interpretations of the word belima, and both are crucial for understanding the mystical mindset.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first interpretation is highly philosophical. It breaks the word down into two parts: beli, which means without, and ma, which translates to what or anything.
So literally without anything.
Yes. This interpretation argues that the text is calling them the sephirot of nothingness, to emphasize that they are purely ideal concepts. They are utterly devoid of physical substance.
Got it.
It's a deliberate contrast to the letters of the alphabet. You can write a letter down on parchment. You can vibrate your vocal cords and speak a letter into the air. Letters have a physical shadow. But the sephirot, they are completely abstract.
They're the math behind the physics.
Precisely. And to back this up, the ancient commentators point to the book of Job, chapter 26, verse 7, which contains a truly staggering poetic image. The verse says, "He hangs the earth on nothingness."
Wow.
And the exact Hebrew word used there is belima.
Hanging the entire physical, crushing weight of the earth onto a framework of pure, formless concept. That is a beautiful image. But you mentioned a second interpretation.
I did, and honestly, the second one is even more radical. It looks at the etymology differently. Instead of breaking the word in half, it looks at the linguistic root.
Okay, so different grammatical approach.
Right. In this reading, belima is derived from the Hebrew root word balaam, and balaam means to bridle. Like, you'd strap a bridle onto a horse to restrain it.
To hold something back by force.
Yes. The Psalms talk about not being like a horse or mule whose mouth must be bridled, Balaam, with bit and rein. And the Sefer Yetzirah itself actually commands the reader later in the first chapter, using this exact root. It says, bridle your mouth from speaking of them.
Bridle your mouth. So they're telling us that the Sephirah aren't just without physical stuff, they are fundamentally inexpressible.
They're so massive, so far beyond human comprehension, that our language completely breaks down when we try to capture them.
So according to this view, a better translation of the verse would be the 10 ineffable Sephirah. We are explicitly commanded to restrain our attempts to describe their essence, because their essence is just unknowable.
Exactly.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this. Because if the ancient text explicitly tells us to bridle our mouths, and that these concepts are completely ineffable, aren't we breaking the rules right now?
It's a fair question.
Like, aren't all these ancient rabbis who wrote huge commentaries on this breaking the rules? The very act of trying to define an infinite God seems like it would inherently limit that God.
That is the ultimate paradox of mysticism, and you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
How do you describe the indescribable without diminishing it?
Right. How do you do it?
The Kabbalists were hyper-aware of this trap. Their defense is that they are never, ever trying to describe the essence of the divine itself. That is impossible.
Yeah.
What they are doing is mapping the vessels.
Mapping the vessels. Okay, explain that.
Think of it like staring at the sun. You cannot look directly at the sun without going blind. The essence is just too much. But you can look at the shadows the sun casts on the ground. You can study the shape of a stained glass window that filters the sunlight.
Ah, I see.
The sephirot, or the stained glass, they are the structural vessels through which the infinite light filters down so that we can interact with it without being destroyed.
We can't know the light, but we can measure the glass. That's profound. And speaking of measuring, the historical commentaries do something incredible here with mathematics to prove just how close these vessels are to the infinite source, right? Using gematria.
Yes, gematria is the ancient Jewish tradition where every Hebrew letter possesses a numerical value. meaning every word is simultaneously a mathematical equation. It's a way of finding hidden relationships between concepts.
And the commentaries cite a major medieval Kabbalist, Rabbi Isaac of Akko, who lived around the turn of the 14th century. He noticed something mind-blowing about the word Belima.
He did. Rabbi Isaac pointed out that if you calculate the numerical value of the primary name of God used in the Genesis creation story Elohim, the total value is 86.
Okay, so God is 86.
But if you calculate the numerical value of the word Belima nothingness, the ineffable framework, the total value is 87.
86 and 87. They're literally adjacent.
It's mathematical theology. Rabbi Isaac of Akko is demonstrating that Belima represents the very first immediate emanation following the pure essence of the divine. Step 1.
Step 1.
God is 86. The immediate, ineffable framework upon which the earth hangs is 87. It is the thinnest possible veil between the infinite and the finite.
That is incredibly elegant. So we have this breathtaking, silent, ineffable framework, the 10 Sephirot of nothingness. But that instantly raises the next massive question.
How do you build it?
Right. If the Sephirah are pure silence, how did a loud, physical, chaotic universe get made? A stained glass window doesn't build a house. You need tools. You need a mechanism.
Which perfectly transitions us to the second half of that opening sentence for the blueprint, and 22 foundation letters.
The code.
Yes. The Sephirot are the abstract architecture, but the physical building blocks, the actual mechanics of creation, are the letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
And the ancient thinkers meant this incredibly literally. When you read the Genesis creation narrative, it doesn't say God molded the earth with his hands like a potter. It says God said, "Let there be light." The universe was brought into existence through literal decrees. Decrees are made of words, and words are made of letters.
Language, in this mystical framework, is not descriptive, it is generative. The universe is a spoken phenomenon.
But the Sefer Yetzirah and its commentators make a staggering claim here. It's one thing to say God spoke the universe into existence at the Big Bang, like, winding up a clock and letting it tick down on its own.
Right, the watchmaker theory.
Exactly. But that's not what they believe. They believe the letters are constantly sustaining reality.
They cite Psalms 119.89, which says, "Forever, O God, your word stands in the heavens."
Your word stands.
The mystical interpretation of this is radical, continuous creation. The specific permutations of letters that were used to create the sun, the moon, and the trees are still actively vibrating right now to keep those things in existence.
So if the vibration of those specific letters stopped for even a microsecond, the physical universe wouldn't just break down. It would instantly revert to the void. It would just cease to be.
It's a terrifying and beautiful level of fragility.
And this brings us back to Bezalel, the architect of the tabernacle. We mentioned him earlier. The Talmud contains a famous teaching about him. It says, Bezalel knew how to permute the letters with which heaven and earth were made.
Because the tabernacle wasn't just a tent. It was designed to be a microcosm of the entire universe.
Right.
So to build a structure that perfectly mirrored cosmic reality, you couldn't just be a good carpenter. You had to be a master programmer. You had to understand the generative source code of the letters.
Okay, I have a major question about the terminology here. The verse specifically calls them the 22 foundation letters. In Hebrew, Otiot Yesod. Why foundation?
That's the key question.
Right. Out of all the Sephirot we talked about, wisdom, beauty, strength, why are the letters tied specifically to the 9th Sephirah, Yesod? This
gets to the very heart of how creation actually works mechanically in this system. In Kabbalistic symbolism, the Sephirah of Yesod foundation corresponds anatomically to the reproductive organs.
Okay, so it's tied to procreation, generating new life.
Exactly. It carries the energy of coupling, of bringing two separate things together in intimacy to produce a third, entirely new reality.
Bringing two things together.
Now, think back to the analogy of the musician we used earlier.
Right. We had wisdom, which is the pure, nonverbal inspiration in the musician's heart, and understanding, which is the structured, categorized sheet music.
So how do you get the nonverbal potential of wisdom to physically interact with the structured reality of understanding? An idea cannot be realized in the physical world unless it can be expressed.
And the only bridge between the nonverbal and the verbal is language. It's the letters.
The letters are the mechanism of cosmic coupling.
Wow.
They are. They're called foundation letters because they act as the procreative link between the divine nodes. It's only through the letters that wisdom and understanding can be paired together to generate reality.
That perfectly explains the ghost node. That knowledge. We called knowledge the processing bridge between wisdom and understanding. And earlier, you pointed out that in biblical Hebrew, knowledge is used as a euphemism for physical intimacy. Adam knew his wife Eve.
Exactly. You see how tight this textual web is? Knowledge is the act of intimate joining. And practically, functionally, that intimate joining is accomplished using the letters of foundation.
The letters are the vibrating strings on the musician's instrument. They take the abstract inspiration, run it through the structure, and physically vibrate it into the air to create the reality of the music.
This is exactly what the ancient mystics meant.
This is wild. We are talking about the alphabet as the reproductive system of reality. The letters are procreative energy, but, you can't just mash piano keys randomly and expect a symphony. You need syntax. You need grammar.
You definitely do.
And the opening verse gives us the exact syntax of this generative code. It divides the 22 letters into 3 distinct categories: 3 mothers, 7 doubles, and 12 elementals.
And this categorization is not random. It's a map of how complexity scales. Let's start with the first category, the 3 mothers. According to the text, these are the Hebrew letters, Aleph, Mem, and Shin.
Why these 3 specific letters out of the entire alphabet?
It's about their structural placement. Aleph is the very first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Mem is the exact middle letter. And Shin is the second to last letter.
Wait, if there are structural markers, why Shin? Why not Tav, the very last letter of the alphabet?
Because Tav belongs to the next category, the doubles, which we'll see in a moment. So Shin acts as the functional structural bookend for this specific group, first, middle, and end.
So they represent the beginning, middle, and end of the linguistic spectrum. But why are they called mothers?
The ancient commentators explain that these letters are called mothers because they are the primary foundational elements. And in Kabbalistic thought, the concept of a mother is deeply tied to the Sephira of Bina, or understanding. Understanding is considered the primary feminine principle in this framework.
The commentators cite Proverbs for this, right? Proverbs 2.3, which says, "For you shall call understanding a mother."
Precisely. Since these 3 letters are the primary elements of the entire alphabet, they are intrinsically linked to that primary maternal principle. But there's also a really fascinating geographic and visual metaphor that the historical texts bring up to explain their function.
The mother of the road.
Yes. They look at Ezekiel 21.26, which describes a fork in a road, a crossroad, and in the original Hebrew, a crossroad is literally called a mother of the road.
That is such a poetic phrase.
Now visualize the tree of life diagram again. You have those 3 vertical columns of Sephiroth. To connect the right column to the left column across the vast middle void, you need crossroads.
Right, you need horizontal beams.
The mystics state that these 3 mother letters, Aleph, Mem, and Shin, form those horizontal links. They're the fundamental horizontal beams connecting the opposing forces of the universe.
They bridge the gap between expansion and restriction. They're the horizontal steel beams of our cosmic architecture. Okay, what about the next category? The 7 doubles.
These are the letters Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Pei, Resh, and Tav. They're called doubles for a very practical, phonetic reason. In classical Hebrew, each of these 7 letters can express 2 entirely different sounds.
Usually a hard, explosive sound and a soft, continuous sound, like a hard B versus a soft V for the letter Bet.
Exactly. They contain a duality within them. Depending on how they are punctuated, they can be one thing, or they can be its opposite.
Think about how profound that is for a moment, listener. The ancient mystics are saying that duality is baked into the very grammar of the universe.
It's foundational.
Think about how your own life operates. You have days of harsh restriction and days of soft expansion, moments of grace, moments of judgment. The Kabbalists are arguing that this human experience of duality exists because the universe is literally being generated by letters that possess a hard and soft phonetic nature. The physics match the linguistics.
It's a perfect mirroring of micro and macro, which leads us to the final category, the 12 elementals.
These are the remaining 12 letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
And they're called elementals because they only possess a single fixed sound. They do not have the duality of the doubles. They're straightforward, singular, unchangeable elements.
So we have 3 mothers, 7 doubles, and 12 elementals.
And if you step back and look at that progression, it's a staggering philosophical model of how a universe goes from the mind of God into a complex, functioning reality. It maps how complexity scales.
Walk me through that scaling.
You start with 3 primary concepts: the mothers, the absolute fundamental principles of beginning, middle, and end, the horizontal structure, From there, reality scales down into 7 dualities, the doubles.
The tension.
Exactly. This is where opposing forces enter the universe. Hot and cold, good and evil, hard and soft, life and death, the dynamic friction of existence. And finally, from those 7 dualities, reality scales down into the 12 fixed singular elementals, the concrete building blocks, the mundane realities that make up the vast diversity of the experienced world.
So we move from 3 foundational principles to 7 dynamic tensions down to 12 fixed realities.
It's a complete architectural flow.
Okay, here's where this gets completely mind-blowing. Because up until now, we've been talking about this in philosophical and linguistic terms.
Yeah.
We have the 10 sephirot, which are the silent anchors, and we have the 22 letters broken into a 3, 7, and 12 ratio, which act as the vibrating procreative bridges.
Right.
But how exactly do they fit together physically?
This is the moment where abstract mysticism suddenly collides with hard, undeniable geometry.
I want you to visualize something right now. Imagine drawing this out on a napkin at a coffee shop. If you take a pen and draw 10 dots representing our 10 sephirot, and you arrange them in 3 columns in the absolute simplest, most mathematically natural manner.
The most intuitive way.
Essentially, you draw a dot at the top, a dot at the bottom, and 2 interlocking diamonds in between. Just a simple, symmetrical 10-point array.
The most basic way to arrange 10 points in 3 columns.
Right. Now take your pen and draw a line connecting every adjacent dot in that array. Don't force any weird shapes, just connect the dots that are next to each other. Something completely unavoidable happens. By the sheer laws of geometry, you are forced to draw exactly 22 lines.
You don't have a choice. The 10 points inherently demand exactly 22 lines to connect them.
But it goes so much deeper than that. When you finish drawing and you count the types of lines you just drew to connect those 10 dots, you'll see that you drew exactly 3 horizontal lines.
The 3 mothers.
You drew exactly 7 vertical lines.
The 7 doubles.
And you drew exactly 12 diagonal lines.
The 12 elementals.
It matches the Sefer Yetzirah flawlessly. 3 horizontals, 7 verticals, 12 diagonals. When I first realized this, my jaw dropped. It means that the 3-7-12 breakdown of the Hebrew alphabet isn't just some arbitrary, spooky mysticism. It isn't just poetic license.
No, it is the natural, inescapable shadow cast by this specific sacred geometry. The alphabet itself is a geometric inevitability.
The sources even provide the underlying algebraic proof for this, which they call the family of diagrams. Now, I'm not going to bore you with dry algebra on an audio show, but the core premise is that for this specific type of grid, the number of lines you need is permanently locked to the number of horizontal connections you make.
It's an equation.
Because our universe requires 3 horizontal crossroads, the mothers. The math dictates that there will always be exactly 22 connecting lines, broken down into exactly 7 vertical and 12 diagonal paths.
It's a unified theory of linguistic and geometric reality. The math is baked into the letters, and the letters are baked into the geometry.
But the historical commentaries point out a really beautiful, deeply human nuance here. The diagram we just drew on our imaginary napkin, the one that perfectly generates the 3, 7, and 12 lines, is called the natural array. It's mathematically flawless, physically symmetrical.
But the practicing Kabbalists over the centuries didn't actually use that perfect symmetrical shape, did they?
No, and this is what I love about this. The texts show us 3 different historical versions of the Tree of Life diagram created by different Kabbalistic schools. There's the diagram according to the older Kabbalists. Then there's one from the famous Safe school in the 16th century, based on the Zohar, and a work called Pardes Ramonim.
Right, major texts.
And then there are diagrams defined by later heavyweights like the Ari and the Gra.
And if you look closely at these diagrams, they deliberately bend the perfect math. They take the middle column of points, and they lower it slightly, breaking the physical symmetry.
Why would a mystic intentionally mess with a mathematically perfect array?
Because they aren't just doing math. They are trying to map the lived spiritual reality of these energetic nodes. The natural array is physically symmetrical, but the Kabbalists understood that spiritual reality, the way human beings experience God, the way expansion and restriction actually interact in our messy world, is not always perfectly neat and symmetrical.
They're adjusting the map to fit the territory.
Exactly. For instance, depending on which school you look at, the Gram might draw a path connecting Yesod directly to Tiferet, while another school might route the paths differently to emphasize a different spiritual relationship.
So they tweak it based on their experience.
They all keep the 10 nodes, they all keep the 22 letters, but where they assign the specific letters and how they draw the diagonals shifts slightly based on their spiritual understanding.
It perfectly illustrates the human element in mysticism. They have the mathematical blueprint, 10 Sephirah, 22 letters, 3 mothers, 7 doubles, 12 elementals. But the lived experience of that reality, the way those divine energies flow into our broken world, is something that has to be grappled with.
It's a constant exploration.
It has to be debated and mapped by each generation of scholars. They're looking at the literal source code of the universe and trying to reverse engineer the intentions of the master programmer.
And that is a process that is never truly finished.
Let's step back and synthesize this incredible journey we've just taken. We started by looking at a single cryptic sentence from an ancient mystical text, Sefer Yetzirah 1.2. 10 Sephirah of nothingness, and 22 foundation letters, 3 mothers, 7 doubles, and 12 elementals.
And by unpacking that, we revealed an entire cosmology.
We discovered a system where 10 unspeakable, ineffable concepts of pure potential, the Sephirah, are bridged together by the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. We learned that these letters are not passive descriptors, but active procreative forces.
The vibrating strings.
Right. They're the vibrating strings that take the silent inspiration of wisdom and couple it with the structure of understanding to generate reality.
And we saw how this linguistic system scales naturally from 3 primary principles to 7 dualistic tensions to 12 fixed realities, forming a mathematically unavoidable geometric web.
A web that doesn't just describe reality once in the ancient past, but constantly actively sustains its very existence right now.
Moment to moment.
So, as we wrap up, we always want to bring this back to you, the listener. Why does this ancient, hyper-specific, mystical geometry matter for your life today? Why should you care about the foundation letters and the Sephirah? I think it frames our daily reality in a way that is incredibly empowering and honestly demanding of deep respect.
It demands a profound accountability for what we do with our own breath and our own words.
Exactly. We are so careless with our language. We fire off texts, we mutter insults under our breath, we speak thoughtlessly. But this 1,500-year-old blueprint frames language not merely as a tool for communication. It frames it as the foundational architecture of reality itself.
It's the building block.
When you speak, you are utilizing the very same source code of existence. You are vibrating the elemental strings of the universe.
Which leaves us with a critical, lingering question to ponder long after this deep dive ends. We started this hour talking about the keel beams of reality, and we realized that those beams are actually constructed of words.
If the ancient Kabbalists were right, if the universe is continually sustained by the vibration and permutation of specific letters, if the fabric of your personal reality is woven by the language you use every single day.
What are you actively building or unbuilding with the words you choose to speak today?
That is a staggering thought to carry with you into the rest of your week. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly complex, mind-expanding journey into the Sefer Yetzirah. We love untangling these dense mysteries with you, and we warmly invite you back for the next deep dive.